CGP, Maths, Foundation, Practice Set 1, Paper 2. It is a calculator paper, so make sure you use your calculator. Line diagram, scatter diagram, pictogram. Sum means add together, so add all of these numbers together. Guto. Remember your calculator. I was clicking this SD button to toggle between the two amounts. Okay, 3 significant figures, so I'm going to calculate each of these first and then do the rounding. You can use the fraction button. Fraction button is just here. If you haven't got a Casio calculator, you'll have to do this in steps and learn how to use your calculator to do this. This button just here. Square root button, shift, square root gives you the power, the cube root. And then rounding, 1, 2, 3 significant figures. Decimal point is here, so we need to pad it out. 1, 2, 3. So 1 centimetre is 250 metres, 13 centimetres. We need the answer in kilometres, so we divide. Kilo means 1,000, cent means 100, kilo means 1,000. We're going from metres to kilometres, so you put that into your calculator. You can do it in your head and then check it in your calculator. It's good to have both figures, both ways of doing it, so you can check your workings. First thing I'm going to do is add them all together. How many students have we got? Then I need Spanish as a fraction of the total. Spanish is 68 as a fraction of the total, 120. And then I'm going to put this into my calculator. And it gives you 17/30. You could have found equivalent fractions to it by dividing both sides by 4, which would have given you the same thing. Calculator makes it much easier. You still need to know that you're doing the right thing with it, of course. Ooh. Shall we try that one again? So starting at -4, counting up 7. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If you don't know how to rearrange equations, this is particularly nasty because it involves negatives and division. If you don't know how to do it, practice it, practice it, practice it. The length of line AB, each of these squares is 1, so we're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Line AC is perpendicular, so if a line was parallel, it would be this way. If it is perpendicular, it crosses at right angles with the line. And we need to find a line AC. So the line will be going along this line here. We need to find out how long our line is though. Line AC is perpendicular to line AB and half the length of AB. So 6 divided by 2 equals 3 units. So we're going from A, C could be here, or C could be here. What are the coordinates of those 2 points? This one here, now remember coordinates have to have brackets and a comma. If you just put 2 numbers, they are just that, 2 numbers and not a coordinate. This is 5 and 5, that's X and Y here. Again, those brackets and the comma, you will not get the marks if you do not put the brackets in. -1 on the X, make sure that's your X, and your Y is 5. So we want to have 5/8 in the ratio of 1 to n. So that means that in the 5 column we need to have a 1. So what do we do to get from, let's just write it out big actually, 5 to 8 we want to get to 1. Now we're told that n is a decimal, so let's find out what 8 divided by 5 is. As a decimal is 1.6. And we need to write the ratio in the form. We can't just put 1.6, we have to put all of that ratio dots. We're told ratio, we need to make sure it's ratio. Now this here, if you've got access to Hegarty Maths, and you're not fluent in being able to connect these together, then Hegarty Maths, an excellent clip video to go through, practice the quiz, do it a few times. It's a drag and drop it quiz. Do it a few times, get yourself to 100%, make sure that you know what you are doing. Numbers that have a sum, we add them together. We need to add, to make a prime number, it needs to be an odd number. 2 is the only prime number, the even prime number, and therefore if we added an odd number and an odd number, we would end up with an even number, always. 5 plus 7 equals 12. 7 plus 13 7 plus 13 is 80. 7 plus 13 equals 20. Even number. But if we add an odd number and an even number together, we end up with an odd number. So to get the prime number, it either needs to be 2 plus 5, 2 plus 7, or 2 plus 13. 2 plus 5 we know is 7, 2 plus 7 is 9, 2 plus 13 is 15. And if you couldn't spot the prime number from there, then have a look at factors. These two have factors of 3, so they cannot be prime, and therefore 7 is. The two numbers have the sum 2 and 5. What's a cube number? Well, you can put it into your calculator. It's 1 multiplied by 1 multiplied by 1, which is 1. 2 cubed, put it into your calculator, is 8. And 3 cubed, 27. Too big for what we need to do. Write it down anyway. So we are looking at either a difference of 1 or a difference of 8. There is not a gap of 1 between any of these, so we're looking for a gap of 8. 5 to 13 equals that gap, so the answer is 5 and 13. Which two numbers have a product? Product means multiply. Factor of 28, let's write out all the factors of 28. 3 doesn't go because you add those two digits together, it's not a multiple of 3. There they are. So which two numbers in the list above have a product, so multiply together to make a factor of 28? 14. 2 multiplied by 7 equals 14. So what are we looking at here? This is time on the motorbike. This is weight. This is train. And this is jog. I'd write it in pencil so that you can rub it out if you need to do anything on the graph. It helps to show what you're talking about, and you've transferred all the information from the question to the graph. How far does Mike travel from his house, which is here, to the railway station? And this is 20 kilometres. Here's the weight, goes from 7 o'clock to halfway between 7 and 7:30, so we're looking at 7:15, which is 15 minutes. 7 till 7:15 is 15 minutes. Average speed, kilometers per hour is the speed, so the distance will be in kilometers and the time needs to be in hours. Please make sure that you notice that kilometers per hour, this one needs to be in hours, we can't do minutes. Average speed equals distance over time. Distance, Mike's complete journey to work. So the distance going from 0 to, now we have to be really careful. Let us use a ruler. And we're going across this line here. Now this is not at 71. There are actually 5 jumps between 70 and 80, which means this is 72. So the distance we have to put in here is 72, and the time, how long does it take him to get from home to work? He arrives at 8 o'clock, he leaves at 6:30, so that's 1.5 hours. In hours and not minutes. 1.5 hours, it has to be in hours. Two marks. Bearings. If we're going from the classroom to the canteen, where do we start? We start at the classroom. We're going from the classroom to the canteen. Or if we said we were going from the canteen from the classroom, it's the same thing. We start at the classroom. F from H, where do we start? We start from H. So I'm going to draw my line in here. I'm going to extend this line here. And then I'm going to measure. I'm going to use my protractor. I'm going to put the centre of the protractor on H. I'm going to line up my protractor. So I've done that very carefully. I've managed to get my midpoint on the H. 0 is exactly on the line here, and that's why it's useful to extend the north line. And you count round. You start at 0. 0 is the outside, and we count round and we get to 71. Just want to check. Sorry, the answer says 72. So in this case, if you're doing a bearing, there will be a margin of error. So the answer says 72. So it'll probably accept 71 to 73. Make sure you put the 0 in here. It has to be 3 digits. And what you're doing is measuring clockwise from north. So 3 digits clockwise from north. Measuring the bearing of H from G. H from G, so where are we starting? We're starting from G, at G. And what we need is the bearing that goes all the way from here round to here, from north clockwise round to G. I'm going to make it slightly easier for myself, and I'm going to measure the acute angle rather than the reflex angle. But this means I need a different, the inside scale this time. And I'm measuring, and here it's on the inside scale 39. So this angle here is 39. I know the whole thing would be 360, so I take 360 and I subtract 39. 3, 2, 1. .320, 322, all acceptable as well. Okay, so this section here, they all have 6 medals. If we add all the medals together, how many degrees per medal? There are 20 medals altogether. There are 6 gold medals, and therefore we are taking the 18 degrees multiplied by 6. So 2012, there were 8 bronze out of 20 medals. There were 9 bronze out of 24 medals. So now we need to work out the percentage. Which is greater? and it says at which Olympics. It doesn't ask you for the 40%, it says at which Olympics did bronze medals make up a greater percentage. So remember, you have a calculator. What we've got is 12 1/4, subtract by 6 and 8, and subtract 4 3/4. Well, let's put that into our calculator. So we're going to use a button here, the fraction button, but we're going to use shift and then that button, and that allows us to write 12 1/4. Subtract, have to go to the right and then subtract, and we do that button again. Subtract. And that gives us 11/8. We need it as a mixed number. There is one in here. There are 8 eighths, so this equals 1 3/8 of an acre. Calculate the profit. Now we're after profit. How much money does he make in total? Do note that it costs him to organise the sale and donation, so we have to consider that value in the total that we're in the profit. We have to take it away from the money that he earns. So 6 these are in the question. So we add those two figures together. And that's the total money he makes, except that he has to pay 1,750. So we subtract 1,750, and that gives us 87625. %, as a decimal is 0.45, 20% as a decimal is 0.2, and when we find the percentage of pupils with blonde hair, we take and we multiply them together. This is a decimal, you multiply by 100 to get to a percentage. If you need to do it, multiply it by 100 on your calculator. It's not 0.9, it's not 90, definitely not 90, it's a small percentage, well, 9%. Mean. Three, 6, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 essays. Let's write them out. Always a good idea to cross them off. Count him. Median word count of the 8 essays, so you're adding an extra one that's going to sit here. So when we're counting in, we end up with these two here. We want to find halfway between these two here. If you need the expression to find that, put it into your calculator. What are we looking at? Well, we're looking at a circle that's part of a cylinder. So let's look at the circle at the end first. What's the radius? Well, the radius is half of the diameter. The radius equals 0.6 centimetres. Okay, so what is the formula? You need to know this. Where r is the radius. If you can't do that in your head, it's always good to check it with a calculator paper. 0.36 pi. And I'm just going to leave it like this for now, because what I need to do, rather than create a rounding error, I'm going to leave it like this. It's 0.36 multiplied by x, sorry, multiplied by pi, and then we need to multiply it by the 4.8. So the volume is the cross-sectional area, which is the area of this circle, and multiply that by 4.8. Put that into my calculator. And I get 5.42. Let's write that down. Three significant figures. We're rounding up. Yep. 5.43 centimetres. Talking about density. Density, we're told, is grams per centimetre cubed. This is grams divided by centimetre cubes. We've got grams here and we've got centimetres cubed. What's grams? Well, that's mass. Centimetre cubed is volume here. Density equals mass divided by volume. What's the mass? We're told it's 29.1, and we're dividing that by the volume. Now, we don't want to put in a rounded value here. We could put the equation for 4, or we could write the whole thing, which is what I'm going to do. Do not round it. It is really, really bad practice. You create rounding errors and your answer may not be accurate. So here I've got the value in, so what I'm going to do is type 29.1, and I'm going to use my favourite button, which is the answer button. Lots of calculators, not just Casio buttons, have it, and this is whatever your answer was last. So I click answer, my last answer was this amount here, and I click on equals. Write the whole thing, 5.360.3, and now I want to round it to 3 significant figures. So careful with the rounding. Make sure you can type all these numbers in. You don't need to use the answer button. You can just type all of those digits in, and that's another reason why we write it all down. Single transformation. That's what you need to write for a translation, but you need to work out what that vector is, the movement. So we're going from this point here, say, to this point here. They're the corresponding points. We're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in the positive x direction. 6 would be helpful there. And then we're moving down 1, not up. Up would be positive, down is negative, so it is 6, -1. As a vector, not a coordinate. We are not moving it to this coordinate, we are moving it. Coordinates are for a fixed place in time. A vector is a movement. Tricky line, y equals x. If you're not asked for x equals a number or y equals number or the x-axis or y-axis, usually the one that's chosen is this one here. This line, is y equals x. Whatever y is 1, x is 1. So all the way along that line, I haven't just see straight. It should be going through exactly through all of those. I think my ruler must be bendy. But here, -5, -5, -2, -2. Here we've got 5 and 5. We would have 6 and 6 here. So that is the line we're reflecting. You can take your tracing paper and flip it across, line your tracing paper up to the line here, draw your shape here, and then flip it over on the line. I'm going to draw it out here. Also do it in pencil, please. It's in pen here so you can see it. And that's the answer. 4 marks. This is a scientific movement formula. If you're doing physics A-level, if you're doing any sort of physics moving on, this is what you will need to use. But we rearrange it like any other equation. Just we're using lots of unknowns. Okay, what have we got here? Well, we've actually got a right angled triangle. So we're either looking at Pythagoras or trigonometry. Which do you think? Now this is the height of the back here, but it's also the height of here. All in meters, so this is good. So we've got a Z here. We've got 2 sides of a triangle and we need to find the angle. Angle means that we're looking at another thing that you need to remember SOHCAHTOA. What have we got here? Well, this is our hypotenuse, which hasn't got anything on it and we don't need it, so I'm just going to ignore that. This is the line that's adjacent and this is the line that's opposite this angle here. Adjacent means next to. AO means that the triangle we want to use is here. tan of the angle equals O opposite divided by adjacent. Opposite is 1.06. And then what we have to do is we have to inverse tan both sides. Oh, sorry. And then put that into your calculator. So, shift button, tan, opens up a bracket. I'm going to put a fraction in here, 1.06, and then 4.77, and then I'm going to close the bracket here. Gives me an answer of suitable degree of accuracy. I would say 1 decimal place, 12.5 degrees. If you do this all correct and it comes out here with a different number, check to see whether the letter D is here or R. If it says R, then you need to change your settings back to decimal settings. You need the D. You'll get the wrong number here if you have an R at the top. Perhaps if you borrowed somebody's calculator who's doing A levels, you might see a different number at the top, different letter. There's one other answer on the answer sheet as well. Compound interest, interestingly, although it's not about interest, it's about hedgehog numbers. What's the assumption that's been made? Well, compound interest is the same reduction or increase every year. And we're only told about 1 year, so we're just assuming that that's for every year. So first of all, what we need to do is work out what 3/4 of the original number was. So not going to do that one in my head. So we're looking for when the answer comes to 72300 or lower. So we need to get to this point, but it needs to be lower. It's not rounding it, it needs to be lower. So what I'm going to do is trial and error to get. So I'm going to start with year 1. Let's just see what it comes to. So I'm substituting 1 into here. I don't actually need the 1, but I can put it in, which is what I'm going to do to show it here. Let's do it up here. 96400 multiplied by 0.96 to the power of 1. The 1 is invisible, but it doesn't hurt to put it in. You could also put the 0 in. Again, that's invisible. I tend to leave it out. 92,544. So that's a long way away from our 723. So what I'm going to do is jump a few years and see what it looks like in 4 years. I'm going to use the same equation that I've written in here, and I'm just going to use the back button. Just to go back, the delete button, and then I'll put a 4 in. It's a good idea to write this down, even though you could just carry on writing it in, just because it gives you, allows you to look at the pattern. Now I'm still quite a long way away, so I'm going to jump 2. Use the back button again. Now you don't need to write all of these digits down. I'm just doing it because it's something that I want you to do on a regular basis, and you choose to write them if you want. At the moment we're just trying to find a number that gets below here. We're still not there, so I'll do another jump. Sorry, this was 6. I actually did do 5. Now, despite this being very close, let me just show you 72300, 72439. This number that I've got for 7 years is still too high. I haven't reached this 72,300 yet. This is still greater, so I have to go 1 more year. Maybe 2, but I think it probably is 1 more year. There we go. How many full years will it be? Well, it's 8. Be careful when you're labelling it. Make sure that you know what year you're looking at. The answer is 8 years for 4 marks. The whole of that question was 4 marks. Okay, I'm going to make sure I've got some pictures so that it helps me understand what's going on here. Key bit about this question is that the bus company has 20 minibuses and that does not change. So originally they had double-deckers, single-deckers and minibuses. They sold some single-deckers and double-deckers, but they didn't sell minibuses. So they have 20 minibuses at the start and 20 minibuses at the end. So before and after. Before double, all the same. We know that there are 20 minibuses. And let's do the same for after. And again, there are 20 minibuses here. So this 2 parts and this 4 parts represents the same thing. And we can use that to work out what each of these parts represents. 2 parts have to add up to 20. So what's each of them? Well, 20 divided by 2 is 10. So that means all of these boxes here equal 10, all of them. Not just these, because each part is the same, it's all of them, all the way along. And what about here? Well, we've got 20 boxes, sorry, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 boxes, 20 minibuses, so 20 divided by 4 means that each of these boxes has 5 in them. All the way along here, and these as well. So how many minibuses do we have? How many double-deckers to start with? We have 80. That's 8 multiplied by 10. 3 multiplied by 10 is 30. And we have 20. We knew that 20 here. So minibuses don't change. Singles are here, and we're going to work out the singles here. And the double-decker buses, and we're going to work out the double-decker buses here. So what have we got? Well, we've got 5 lots of 5, which is 25. Here we've got 12 lots of 5, which is 60. You can put any of those, both of those, into your calculator. Now, what do we have? How many buses did the company sell? Well, they started with 80 double-deckers. They've now got 60, so they sold 20. They started with 30 single-deckers, 25, and now we've got 5 single. And it's buses sell in total, the total buses, no minibuses, 30 to 25, we've got 20 here, and 5 equals 25, so there were 25 buses sold. Sorry, 20 plus 5, 20 double deckers, 5 single deckers, we add them together and the 25 buses sold. Let's piece together what this question has told us. Not all of the information that we need is on that diagram yet. So what have we got? We've got an equilateral triangle. Equilateral triangle means that all of these sides are the same. It also means that all of the angles are the same. In a triangle, the internal all of them the same. There are 3 of them. So we know this is 60 degrees. What do we know about this corner here? Right angle. It's a square, it's a right angle. It is 90 degrees. Which means that this one here is 30 degrees. So what about this one here? Well, actually you can see that the length of a square is this length here, which is the same as this length here, which is the same as this length here as well. And actually it's the same as this length and this length, but we don't need those for now. What have we got here? I like to call these spot the isosceles triangle. And what we have, if I just sketch it out here, this triangle here, I'll colour it in yellow, is an isosceles triangle. We know that this angle is 30 degrees because that's the angle that we worked out over here. And then we know that those 2 sides are the same length, which means that these 2 angles are the same. Now, this question doesn't actually ask you to write out the reasons. It's a good idea. It's always good practice to do that though. Isosceles triangle, all internal angles of a triangle sum to 180. We know one of the angles. Those 2 angles add up to 150. And that's your 80 marks.